and welcome to the PS Lifestyle Wellness Podcast, Wellness in Your World. As a reminder, PS Lifestyle Wellness is an exciting and visionary project breaking new ground within the wellness industry. It combines our resource-efficient wellness club along with our online wellness programmes. So whilst our design and build move forward, we bring you the PS 5 areas of wellness online. So conversations about real wellness, no fads, no weird trends. Clear the fog that can make wellness seem so confusing and intimidating. So if you're into facts, credibility, expertise and a bit of humour, stay tuned for some wellness in your world. I'm Lindsay McKenzie.
And I'm Pamela Griffin, and together we are co-founders of PS Lifestyle Wellness. And today we are delighted to welcome personal trainer and nutritionist Al Langlands. For over 10 years, Al has run a successful personal training business in and around Edinburgh, and latterly has opened a nutrition consultancy specialising in advising endurance and ultra-endurance athletes. In that time, he has worked with clients with aims as diverse as competing in high-level team sports, adventure races, marathons, weight loss, and those battling terminal illness. He manages stroke and cardiac rehabilitation programs for a local charity, and his remote training and nutrition clients hail from all corners of the globe, including India, North America, and Europe. He has also personally competed in a number of ultra endurance events, most recently finishing in the top 10 of the 1,080-mile Trans Alba ultra cycling race. Whew. However, I reckon his biggest achievement is probably being my personal trainer over the last 6 or 7 years. Welcome, Al. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Was that all accurate?
Yeah, very good. Sounds pretty accurate to me. Yeah, no, especially the last bit.
Yeah,
when was that?
What was that?
When was that? When did you do that?
What, the race?
The race, yeah.
That was, I was going to say last year, but that's just because lockdown has kind of taken away my
timeline, yeah.
Okay, time, but no, it was the year before, so 2019. So June 2019.
Whereabouts?
So Trans Alba means across Scotland. So it was basically, we started in Edinburgh, we finished in Edinburgh, but we went kind of all the way round. So we headed north, all the way up to kind of the top to Durness. That was up past kind of through kind of Inverness, up through the Black Isle, and then down the kind of northwest corner, all the way down to Glasgow, then back up again into the centre, and then back down through the borders, and eventually into Edinburgh. So
that sounds horrific.
To be honest, it was one of those things that you sign up for and you think this is going to be a great adventure, and it started off like that, and then the weather turned, and honestly for like kind of, so it took me 6.5 days, and for the first 4.5 days we just had constant headwind for the whole, like, and it literally, I obviously turned round a corner, so I did kind of half a circle at the top of the country, and the wind basically changed direction to make sure it was my face for the whole way. I was looking forward to turning around to getting it behind me, but it didn't happen until the kind of second last day. So, but yeah, it was good. I ended up, well, it was good to have done it. I think I was really happy to have finished, but it did really wipe me out. It was the longest, the kind of biggest challenge I had done before, and I couldn't get back on the bike for about 5 weeks after I'd finished. My kind of knees were absolutely knackered, but thankfully back to normal now, and yeah, not on my bike at the moment obviously because it's mid-February and it's absolutely freezing, and you know there's a bit of slush on the ground, but yeah.
Well, Al, I see, when I'm out running, I see cyclists going past me all the time, so what's going on? Come on, get out.
Yeah, no, I'm in my garage at the moment, my turbo trader, that's my cycling. It's far warmer. No, I'm definitely a bit more of a fair weather cyclist.
I always have a joke with Al about cyclists because I'm a runner, not a cyclist, and I always think that cyclists look really grumpy, and like because they ride in packs as well. I think they're a little bit like, you know, intimidating. So when I'm running along, I always smile and say hi to other runners that I go past. You try and attempt to smile at a cyclist, they just blank you. It's really funny.
Generalising a bit there, Pam. There's a bit of grumpy runners too, I'm sure. But,
no,
all like that.
Oh, we're all dead friendly.
All friendly. Always say hello as you go past. Anyway, see, just going back to that challenge you did, was that the one where you had to cycle? You didn't have anyone supporting you, so you had to go all by yourself.
Yeah, it was unsupported, so we had to carry all of our gear and equipment as well, provide our own food, etc. So yeah, it was completely unsupported, to the extent where you'd be disqualified if you had a kind of helper even dropping like a package of food along the way for you.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, it was really, really hard, and there were points where I seriously considered stopping. There's one point in particular, I think because of the week that it was, so I have two young kids, well, they're not that young anymore, they're 10 and 12, but there was one point where I was feeling really suffering. I was in Inverary, so I'd already kind of gone more than halfway round, and it was a lovely kind of summer's day, and I came into Inverary and I was absolutely goosed. I was just completely knackered, and I sat down on the green to have a sandwich, and it was I think it was the first Monday of the school holidays, and I kind of sat down and I was surrounded by other families in the sunshine, kind of playing, and I looked around, and I was thinking, you know, what am I doing to myself? I'm absolutely, my legs were just in pieces, and I was completely knackered, having hardly slept, and I knew that my kids were now on holiday and probably enjoying the sunshine as well, you know, at home, and I was off halfway across the other side of the country, not particularly enjoying myself at that point. and if there had been a train station in Inverary, I would have jumped on the train, I think. But thankfully there wasn't, and I just ended up getting back on the bike. And once, it's one of those things that it's funny because it's literally, so from there I had to go up and over the Rest and Be Thankful, which is a pass in the west of Scotland, and came down from the top of that. And that was the one point where I did have a tailwind actually coming off the bottom of it, and the sun came out and it was beautiful, kind of cycling away from Arica, and I just loved it from there. And for the rest of that afternoon, I was kind of able to gun it, and everything felt good. And suddenly, all those kind of negative thoughts had kind of disappeared, and I could kind of crack on. And from then on, actually, I knew I was closer to home than I had been, and so it was, you know, finishable then. So.
Well, you've not convinced me. I won't be doing that, but but well done.
There's another one that's kind of caught my eye for a couple of years' time, but which is across South America. So it's from Valparaiso to Buenos Aires, so across the Andes, and that's in a couple of years' time. And I've kind of yet to convince my wife that it would be a good idea for me to do that. So I've got to work on that one, I think. But, I think I wasn't sure whether I'd ever want to do one of those kind of things again, but I think actually it's probably like giving birth, and that you forget how painful it was, and actually
you get yourself over the finish line. You think, go never again, and then you have a few beers, and it's like, yay, let's sign up for another.
The number of times that Lindsay and I have done, I've never done a full marathon, but Lindsay has. But we've both run several half marathons, and we always get over the line and go, I'm never doing that again. And then we have pretty much a lot of prosecco, and then we go, yay, next year, woo! It's the elusive runner's high or cyclist high, isn't it? It's the endorphins.
Yeah.
Somebody once said it was like a bit like childbirth. You forget.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Apparently, who knows?
Who knows? Not me.
Or me, surprisingly.
So, Al, how did you get into the whole fitness thing in the first place? Tell us your story.
Well, to be honest, I've always been, I think from a child, I've always been pretty sporty, and that started off, you know, taking part in kind of team sports, etc., through school, and I actually didn't start in the industry. I started off, so after I left school, I started off, and I wanted to be a teacher, so I ended up going to university and doing education, and I started off as a primary school teacher. And decided, I mean, after a year or so, I realized it really wasn't for me. Although, having said that, when I was teaching, so I tended to be, because I was working in smaller schools, I tended to be the only male teacher in the school, and often, for one reason or another, I would end up being kind of given the PE brief, even though I wasn't necessarily a specific PE teacher. You know, I really enjoyed that side of things, and so it kind of opened my eyes to the fact that actually that was a direction that I wanted, you know, in terms of teaching exercise of some sort. So whether it was to children or to adults, it was something that I wanted to do. So after I left teaching, I then started a business talking about bikes there, doing cycling tours. I hadn't yet realised that actually I wanted to put that kind of the kind of education side into actually kind of training people. And at the time, actually, kind of personal training wasn't necessarily it didn't seem like a viable career path at the time. It was a bit question. It was seen very much as at that time as being still a little bit kind of elitist, if you like, or a little bit certainly not mainstream in any way. And so it was initially I went down the kind of tourism route, but then moved eventually into PT, and I thought that actually there was a potential there for me to use the skills that I'd learned, I guess, with regards to teaching people in a kind of positive way. So kind of matching my kind of my love of exercise, etc., with my love of working with people and trying to kind of bring them on in whatever field that is. And exercise is really the one that I feel closest to. So eventually, so I qualified with the European Institute of Fitness down in Lilleshall, and started practicing from there. So it initially started in a pure gym, as many PTs trainers do. It's pretty, it's not a great environment, but anyway, it was one of those ones where you start somewhere. Made me realize that I really didn't want to work in that kind of environment, and branched out my own. And my wife's a physiotherapist, so we ended up beginning a business together, really kind of combining our skills. And it has proved to be quite handy. I mean, we do kind of we not that we switch clients, but we basically kind of share clients. So often I'll have clients where they perhaps develop an injury over time, and she can help with that, and equally she can refer some of her clients to me. But over the years, I guess. So getting back to the fact that at the time when I started, PT it was really seen as a bit of a kind of niche, just in terms of the general public as well. I think over the last 10 years, that's changed massively. There's been a real kind of, awakening of awareness, if you like, in terms of the importance of exercise in general for people's physical health, but also mental health, but also a bit of a kind of a realization by the general public that, and whether this is to do with the fact that people have less or feel more time poor, so they feel like they have less time. They want that exercise generally to be a bit more efficient in terms of getting to their end goals, to their aims. And I think there's a realization that actually having some real kind of one-to-one personal help with that can be massively beneficial, rather than having to go down the route of doing lots of research yourself, which can be incredibly time consuming. Having someone else who's actually done a huge amount of really in-depth research, within that specific field, and can impart that and help you through the challenges that you're bound to come across, I think is really valuable, and it's something that is the reason I kind of moved into that field, I think.
Well, there's so much out there, isn't there? It's like wellness industry all over, isn't it? There's so much out there that you don't know what is right, what is beneficial, what is a fad, that kind of thing. So if you've got somebody like yourself,
I think especially now, I think again, like looking back the last 10 years, so when I started out, social media wasn't really a thing. It was, again, just beginning. I think Facebook had just launched pretty much. And over that time, so there have been these kind of cross purposes almost, in that you have a much greater awareness of the benefits of exercise and good nutrition, in terms of overall health, but equally, and social media has been used positively in that time as well, in terms of being able to promote that. But there's also been a wee bit of a kind of counter movement almost of, and you could argue that social media, looking at what's happened recently with regards to politics, etc., it's not always a positive influence, and it does sometimes lead to dissemination of false facts and fads and things which, silver bullets, basically. So things where it sounds incredibly attractive because it doesn't take any effort. And people, it's human nature that you're going to want to go, like water, you try to follow the easiest path. And unfortunately, with regards to kind of nutrition and health and again, the influence of social media, that's not necessarily always the right path, I think. and the one that's going to provide you the benefit. I mean, there are so many fads that have come and gone over the last, over the period that I've been working as a PT and nutritionist, and you can kind of pull them out, the kind of skinny tea or
Yeah.
and one of my kind of roles, I guess, with my clients is to act as a wee bit of a sounding board, and in the past I have done, and that people, there will be a fad that will flare up, and I know that week I'll have 10 questions on that fad. And so even though I'm not necessarily keen to read up on it, I kind of have to and want to be able to put to bed the claims that are made, and to try to direct my client into a more positive and an effective remedy for whatever they're looking to resolve.
Yeah, you need something far more sustainable, don't you? Everybody wants that instant gratification, don't they?
Yeah.
And generally, if it sounds to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
What would you say, Al, in terms of like nutrition versus exercise? Are they just as important? Do you have to have? Are they not mutually exclusive? What's your feeling about the whole thing? Because it's this whole idea of you can't out train a bad diet. Like, you can run 50 miles a week, but if you're having a chippy for your tea every night, is that good? Is it bad? Or, does it matter if you're staying within your calorie kind of, consumption, or is it a longer term thing? If you're eating really badly, then what's going on inside isn't building up problems for the future. So obviously you've got both of those areas of expertise that you deal with.
I think you kind of almost answered that in pulling it apart. That there's not, and you can take it to whatever extreme. If you're talking about the out training a bad diet thing, even if you were to look at if you're to look at it, elite athletes, so there's so specifically with regards to kind of female athletes, actually, that there used to be so the kind of the old school traditional thought was that the nutrition wasn't necessarily as important as training, and so if we were taking kind of long distance runners, so the process of training that they would undertake would be to pound the miles out, kind of day after day after day, and actually in terms of the internal health of those women, it was really, really damaging, especially with regards to kind of menstruation, etc., and
reproductive health.
Fertility. Yeah, exactly, fertility. And I think much more recently there's a real realization that actually the diet has to, so the person's diet, so whether it's an elite athlete or your kind of everyday Joe, the diet has to run alongside that exercise program. So regardless of how kind of extreme or how serious that exercise program is, if you're looking for kind of overall health in terms of maintaining good health through a long period of your life, then really those do have to go hand in hand. You can exercise all you like, but there are things that will go on with regards to your kind of internal health as well as your mental health, which are affected by diet, to be honest. And especially things, I mean, if we're really kind of looking at things like alcohol consumption, which although everybody really knows is not particularly great, and when taken to extremes, it can affect, massively internal health, even though it's not necessarily visible, because that person is skinny, and so it is something certainly to be taken quite seriously. I think, by everyone, to be honest. I mean, I think you mentioned at the start there that one of the things that, and one of the groups that I work with are people who've suffered from stroke and are cardiac events which have changed their lives, and you would be surprised at the range of kind of ages of people who attend some of our groups. There, unfortunately, and there are some really quite young people who are left with really life-altering I guess you call them injuries, which sometimes are to do with the lifestyle that they had prior to that event, unfortunately, and you really feel for them, because it's a I wouldn't wish that on anyone, to be honest. And although we give them as much help as we possibly can, so sometimes, you know, it is a very difficult thing to be able to manage for the rest of your life. And if we can prevent that, you know, that's the ideal. If you can take away the risk of that happening. Obviously, we can't completely nullify the risk, but if you can reduce that risk, then that's it.
I sometimes feel that a lot of it is down to the fact that there is so much information out there that it is so conflicting. Like thinking back to our parents' generation, where, you know, it was almost the opposite. Like, you know, there was no information, meat and two veg, brilliant, you know, walk everywhere, whatever. I mean, I'm sure that there were things that weren't great about that either. And now you've got this generation that it's you know, so influencer based, and anybody can go on Instagram and give you the 10 top shredding fat tips and all that, and it worries me actually, for like, we're all reasonably educated about this stuff, and we're a little bit older as well, and we remember pre-social media, but for the kids that are coming up now, you know, they're seeing all this. I think it's a concern, and I think we need to be really mindful of that with the generation that's coming up, what we're teaching and what we're putting out there, so that they understand exactly what good health and it's health, isn't it? Rather than necessarily fitness or nutrition, it's an all-round kind of healthy way of living. But you see so much stuff on Instagram and things. I know, Lindsay, you get really annoyed with it, don't you? Have like rants occasionally about stuff that you see, and it's difficult, isn't it, to know what's right and what's wrong. But I think we had this conversation a little bit with Andrew last week as well, about generally the most effective things are the most simple things, and it goes back to what you were saying, Al, about there's no silver bullet. Like, actually, move more, eat less. I mean, maybe that is oversimplifying it, I don't know, but realistically, you know, why are we overcomplicating all this stuff?
And you know, that's the whole kind of move more, eat less thing is tricky, because it isn't quite as simple as that, but at the same time, you know, if you're breaking it right down, then yes, okay. It's just that our bodies are, you know, there's so much else that goes into the perhaps why we don't move as much as we possibly would like to, and it's working with that, trying to kind of change those parts of the equation. I mean, the ultimate equation is that simple, but there's so much that goes into each of those different parts of the equation that you need to kind of tweak those in order to then be able to kind of, you know, positively affect the overall kind of simple equation. You know, whether it's to do with, you know, people's jobs, you know, not having enough time. I mean, you look, you know, kind of thinking about our parents' generations, you know, people's jobs were, and even going further back, you know, I don't think people's work has ever been quite as sedentary as it is just now. And
especially now.
Yeah, exactly. We're all basically we're all
I know.
It's not conducive to kind of burning calories or to activity. So you really need to be a bit more proactive. And obviously, the kind of messaging from the government has been to go out and have your daily exercise, and people are doing that, but it's probably not enough. But at the same time, obviously, we're in a situation where we can't mix. Really. And so it's a really tricky time at the moment. But even kind of taking us away from that, you know, from where we are right now, you know, so last year pre-lockdown, even then, you know, just modern lifestyle is so sedentary that that you really need to kind of have a wee bit more awareness as to how you can fit in a bit more activity to your general life, you know, beyond that.
I mean, you're not, because of this whole instant kind of gratification, people wanting, you know, changes almost immediately. Obviously, there are a lot of people who just don't put the work in. Is that what it comes down to? Is it about taking responsibility? Is it about accountability? Is it about saying, right, I'm going to do this and this week? Or can it? Do you get any benefit from it being fairly sporadic, or does it have to be, you know, quite, not so much regimented, but consistent?
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously we're all different. We all respond to different stimuli, whether it's, you know, whether, I mean, some people really like to have a bit of a regimented program, and other people, you know, you maybe look at other forms of motivation in order to try to get them to really engage with why they're employing me, to be honest, why they're looking for my advice. And so it's about kind of gauging what will have the best effect on that particular person, I guess. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be very regimented. I think a lot of people do come to personal trainers or nutritionists simply for accountability. You know, they kind of know what they should be doing, but actually they need to have someone there who they know is going to come, you know, there's a set time every week, or, you know, a couple of times every week where they're going to have some time with that person, and that person's going to be checking up on what they've been doing that week. And it's you know, as simple as that. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a massive amount of structure to the actual activity that they're doing. It's just that having that person be there, check up on them, will keep them to a more discipline's maybe the wrong word, but just a slightly more structured week. Because actually having a little bit of structure in terms of your nutrition and exercise can be very beneficial. You know,
it definitely is. I was just going to say, I used to quite like it when you tipped up at my house with all the stuff. I didn't have to go anywhere. I just had to get up, and there was no excuses. One of the things that's really funny about Al is, even if like you're going, this is sore, he just kind of ignores you. Like, he's not a shouty PT. He's one of those, yeah, it's sore. Yeah, get on with it. But the thing is, if I didn't have you saying that, I'd probably stop. So it is, for me, it was always the accountability and knowing that I would get through that hour. Yes, it would be reasonably sore, but I'd feel better afterwards. And that sort of gentle persuasion would keep me going. So yeah, I think a routine is quite, I think it's quite, as humans, we quite like that, do we not? I think that's probably what we're all missing quite a lot at the moment as well. Is having that time sort of dedicated, and you know, it's for me, it was always right. That's that 1 hour that nothing, you know, that's definitely going to happen kind of thing. So yeah. We're missing that right now.
I mean, I always try to encourage clients to try and find an activity that they really love doing, that they would do.
Do not enjoy Bulgarian split squats with belts. I'm telling you that right now.
This is the point, though, is that, you know, I know that the thing that you really love doing, Pam, is going for a run, and you know, and so having your targets, you know, whether it's the marathon, the half marathon, or whatever, but you know, so having something that you really enjoy doing and that you would do, you know, whether or not I was there or not, is the kind of be all and end all. And the strength exercises that I would do with clients generally are there to try to. So yes, they have a kind of double benefit. So one is, generally people are looking for kind of an aesthetic benefit, and strength exercises do help with that regard, both for women and for men. But also it's to do with kind of helping the person become a bit more resilient, so that they're less likely to be injured doing the activity that they really love doing. And with running, unfortunately, the chances of you getting injured are really high. Most people get injured at some point, you know, when they're if they're a regular runner. And B, that actually it'll help to improve your performance really much quicker than if you were just to go out running all the time. And again, that's similar for any kind of exercise. You know, you look at kind of you look at
the number of clients that I have that are runners who just run, and I say to them, do you do strength? Do you do resistance? No.
The best I was going to say, the best half marathon times I've ever had have been the years when I was consistently working with Al and doing even once a week. You know, it wasn't like I was training with you 3 times a week. It was generally once a week. And I really notice a massive difference when I'm training for a race and I'm not seeing you and we're doing that. I try to do it by myself. I've started using various apps and things like on the telly, I think because I'm one of those sorts of people that needs that encouragement as I'm doing it. Otherwise, if I'm just doing a Bulgarian split squat off my sofa in my living room, I do one and I go, no, I can't do that. But if you've got somebody sort of encouraging you, but it's true. And I don't think I ever realized just how how much you need that strength and resistance training. It's bone density as well, isn't it? And it's just
so that's the thing. I mean, you've got to see past you've got to see past the aesthetic of it, but you've also got to see past that you know, I'm doing strength work because I'm wanting to run a half marathon. Well, great, but you know, I've got clients of a certain age, over a certain age, and advising them to do strength work, you know, because of, you know, encouraging load and you know, bone density and it just making you stronger and, like you said, more resilient, you know, and just making sure that your balance is strong, so that as you age you don't fall over and break your hip.
Yes,
it is that simple. And I'm kind of like going off on a tangent here, but it's that societal norm where we think we get to a certain age and it's like, you know, your back starts to hurt, your hips start to hurt. Oh well, I'm 60. That's just the way that it goes, and that infuriates me. And the majority of my clients of a certain age, I will tell them, that's my advice. Yes, stretch, because that's my thing as a massage therapist. But you know, your mobility and your flexibility isn't going to be increased just simply by stretching. You know, you need to get out there and you need to be doing some level of resistance. Body weight stuff is perfect. You don't need to go out and buy the equipment.
Yeah.
Use your own body. And it's thinking about the longer term benefits of it. You know, it's not just about having a six pack and you know, hefty guns. It's about actually, as we age, how we're going to age better and healthier.
Having a better quality of life later into life, Being able to do those, being able to go for nice walks up in North Berwick Law or whatever, you know, if you're,
do you still do that mad run up the North
I think taking that.
Sorry.
What's that, sorry?
I was just saying, do you still do that mad run up and down the North Berwick Law? For those of you that don't know, it's a ridiculous.
To be honest, I've not done it for a while. No, my son, my kids do it now. Actually, they did it last one. But,
your kids are like the fittest kids in the world. It's ridiculous. So listen, if we're talking about sort of working from home and the way things are at the moment, what can people do reasonably easily then, Al, to just kind of keep their fitness up? And obviously it helps your mental health. So, you know, what can we be doing quite easily ourselves just to keep going?
Well, like Lindsay was saying, you don't necessarily need any equipment, to be honest. You know, bodyweight exercises for most people can be very effective, and equally if we're all working from home and if the weather is as rubbish as it is at the moment, you know, outside, then actually just being able to take a break midway through the day and you know, and work through some bodyweight exercises, specific bodyweight exercises, you know, it's far better than doing nothing, and it will, you know, will have a kind of a positive effect on how you feel for the rest of the day, as well as kind of, so there's the physical aspect, but there's also just the kind of mental aspect in terms of waking you up a little bit. So when I'm working at a computer for a long period of time, I tend to feel kind of mentally frazzled quite, you know, quickly, or certainly, you know, midway through the day. So having some physical activity, just getting some blood flowing, getting everything else moving again, can really help.
Star jumps in the living room 20 times.
You can go down that route, yeah. I mean, the whole kind of high impact thing, like, you know, as annoying as I find Joe Wicks, actually.
How did I know you would say that?
Oh, if you're listening, we love you.
I mean, to be honest, like he's a bit of a Marmite character, and he's yeah. What he did for the whole kind of the P thing, I was quite a, you know, it's a very kind of generous thing. And
you're hacked off that you never thought of it yourself.
But you know, I maybe wouldn't do that every day. I think that was the only criticism I had is that you know, it's very high impact and it was every day for kids, and that's just a wee bit much for kids to do every day. But you know, there are other things that you could do as well. But you know, certainly kind of 1 or 2 of those a week, 2 or 3 of those a week, you know, fine.
But are you thinking more kind of I don't know, working big muscles, compound moves that
Yeah.
that kind of thing, as opposed to jumping around like a
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Squats and Bulgarian split squats.
Okay, split squats, Romanian deadlifts, anything from Eastern Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always Eastern European ones that are the hardest. Okay, yeah. Sorry, carry on. It's just it's when you say Bulgarian split squat, it's not good. Yeah.
So on that basis, then, Al, do you, given lockdown, are you jumping around your house doing star jumps and Bulgarian split squats?
I am actually, yeah.
What is your wellness routine? What does it mean for you? How have you?
All right. So for me, so personally, yeah. So I get, I guess so. So my thing is cycling, really, in terms of my big love, and so at the moment, I'm in my garage cycling because the weather's so horrendous. So I have a kind of turbo trainer, and I generally jump on that 2 to 3 times a week. But also, I have some home weights as well. So I'll do some weights at home, etc., and that kind of thing, and my own kind of strength routine. What does wellness mean for you in terms? So if you're looking at kind of now, I guess it's to feel happy and well in myself. So the mental side of it is a massive part for me. I think I really suffer, I guess, if I'm not being active. I find that really difficult, and I think exercise for me was funny actually. The dinner table yesterday. So one of the tasks that Ellis, my daughter, had from school, it was part of her kind of wellness initiative at school, was to ask her, so 2 adults, what do they do to de-stress? And so Gemma and I are both, my wife and I are both very sporty, and surprise, surprise, that was our kind of our answer. So, exercise is a really big part of our kind of ways of dealing with stress. And if we have particular stressful times, so whether it's through work or other things in life, then actually for Gemma, she'll go out and run, and that's her way of kind of dealing with that. And for me, it's often kind of, generally, so in the summertime, especially hopping on the bike for a couple of hours and going out into the hills, on my own sometimes. And so there's no one else around. It's just, you have a lot of kind of, I find it really useful in terms of thinking time, but there's also the element of kind of really pushing yourself that I find really helps with my mood. To the extent where my children find it disgusting at the moment, because I say I'm in the garage on my bike and we don't know if I've not set up a fan in there because it's winter, and but I was, the puddle of sweat is not a very pleasant thing for the kids to come. But, I mean, so for me, I mean, being fit enough to be able to feel like I can really push myself, and I'm a really competitive person, so things like Strava, etc., I find incredibly addictive, and I always kind of have my kind of local rivals on some of my routes. That kind of helps me deal with things and just take my mind off everyday stresses, I think. So feeling fit and healthy and able to do the things I love. It's my kind of priority, I guess, with regards to wellness.
I think it's fair to say that for a lot of people at the moment, it is just having that time to exercise that is helping a lot of people get through this. And I mean, walking is a great, it's a great,
hugely underrated.
I know.
Yeah.
I think even if you don't want to do any of those other things we've talked about, just get out and walk. And actually, going outside in the freezing cold can be quite bizarrely quite nice. Like, you come in and you feel quite energized because it's so cold and you've been out and you've got that fresh air. So even just getting out and walking. As I have to say though, as a runner, since we were all told to go outside and exercise, I get really annoyed with all the walkers that are on my running route. Want to play chicken with you as well. It's quite funny. You see them coming towards you and you're like, who's going to move first? Anyway, well, thank you, Al. We're really delighted that you're part of the PS team. And I think, the listeners, like we said this when we spoke to Andrew last week, who's also part of the team, that eventually they will get to meet you inside the PS building when that comes to fruition soon. But
really exciting.
Yeah, we're moving forward. Really, lots of good things are happening. So that's on the horizon. But in the meantime, you know, as the listeners will know, we're able to deliver those things online. So hopefully that's given them a really good taste of the sort of things that you are an expert in, Al. Thank you for sharing all that with us.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
And we've figured out that cyclists are grumpy and Pam hates Bulgarian split squash. So
those are your takeaways.
Those are the takeaways. What we'll do as well, Al, is can you just kind of plug your website for us, but we'll also write it in the cover notes on the podcast as well. But how can people get in touch with you if they want to find out?
Sure. So I have kind of two websites. I have my personal training website and physiotherapy website, which is langlandshealthandfitness.com, all one word. And then the more specific nutrition consultancy, which is generally kind of focused, like I say, more on kind of endurance nutrition side of things. That's feelbetternutrition.com, which I'm kind of wearing.
You can always see that if you're watching this on YouTube.
It's true, yeah.
Don't worry, we'll put all the information on the podcast. Thanks, Al. We really appreciate your time because we know you're very busy.
Yeah. And and always we like to hear from you, so please like and share and comment, and contact us for more information on creating bespoke online wellness programs for your employees to ensure that they remain motivated and engaged in your business. So find us at pswellnessedinburgh.com, and thank you for listening, and join us next time for some more wellness in your world. Thanks, Anna.
Bye.
Bye.